Hey guys, Will Secure here. Today I'm going to be showing you my Star Wars book, movie, and that kind of stuff. My collection of that. So let's get started. First we have both the old and new Star Wars character encyclopedias. I very much like these books because they show all the information that is really needed about any character, although they can be lacking in some aspects as opposed to main characters. For smaller characters, they're very useful to find out about those characters and just little facts about any sort of character you might want to know about. Then we have the Clone Wars Character Encyclopedia. This is pretty much just the character encyclopedia, but for all things Clone Wars. It shows Season 1 and 2 of the Clone Wars, and I very much like this book because you can learn about a lot of the earlier characters from the Clone Wars that you probably would never have been able to know very much about without this book. And here we have the Star Wars The Clone Wars Episode Guide. This is very useful if you want to start watching the Clone Wars in chronological order, because instead of being Season 1 through 6 just in order of the episodes, it is in order chronologically. So that's very useful, and there's all fun facts about different Clone Wars episodes, which is something I very much like about this book. Up next we have both the Clone Wars and the Tag Team Star Wars Head-to-Head book. I really like these books because they show matchups that you probably would never have seen before, or sometimes you have because they've expanded it since then, but ones you wouldn't think you would see ever, and some that you could never see. And they show a lot of statistics about each character, and I just very much like these books. Next up, we have the Star Wars Complete Locations. This book I actually got at a thrift shop, but it was very much worth it because it shows every sort of detail about almost all the main structures in the prequel trilogy, and actually in the original trilogy as well. So it's a very complete book of the Star Wars locations, and it just shows you everything that you might want to know about those things. Next up we have the Star Wars The Clone Wars Visual Guide. Now, I'm not that big a fan of this book. It just has the episode summaries, not much anything new, and it's only about the early stages of the Clone Wars because that's when it was made. It's a decent book, but I wouldn't recommend buying it. Now this is the Star Wars Visual Encyclopedia. This is probably my favorite book that I have in my collection. It just shows everything you might want to know about Star Wars, like all the helmets and guns. It's just an amazing book. I would definitely pick this up if you're a Star Wars fan. And if you're just a casual fan of Star Wars, you might start getting into Star Wars more because this book just shows everything you might want to know about Star Wars. I've actually got a couple of the ideas for my videos from this book. Next up, we have Solo: A Star Wars Story, the official guide. I very much don't like this book. It doesn't have much details about anything. The pictures are way too big and there's not enough words to actually get any content out of this book. It seemed to me like just a money grab because there wasn't anything interesting in this book, and it's just sat on my shelf since I got it when the movie first came out. This is Star Wars Rebels: The Visual Guide. This is a pretty good book if you're into the Rebels show. It's a very good guide for the first season, but unfortunately it doesn't cover anything after that. It also has a very neat section in the back on how Rebels was inspired by the concepts of Ralph McQuarrie's art, which I thought was very interesting. So if you're a big fan of Rebels, I would recommend buying this book. And that is if you want to learn about Season 1, because as I said before, unfortunately it doesn't cover anything after that. Next up, we have 4 of the Secrets of the Galaxy books. I absolutely love these books. I got them as a Christmas present, but they're just the most amazing books because they show everything about that faction, literally everything. But unfortunately they're not canon anymore because, well, Disney, but they just show so much about each of the factions, and I absolutely love these books. They're just incredible, and they show literally everything you'd want to know about the specific faction. Except the Sith one, because it's made out of sort of particles of different Sith manuscripts, but just the detail in these books is just awe-inspiring. Next, we have the First Jedi Academy series by Jeffrey Brown. When I started reading these books, I was just getting into middle school, and they were very impactful to me. I just love them, and I actually still enjoy them to this day. Unfortunately, though, they changed authors, and now they're not as good. But to be honest, I still read these ones, and they're just very good books. If you're a younger reader out there, I'd very much recommend them to you. Here we have two of the books in the new Jedi Academy series, which I really don't like as much as the old series, but they're still pretty good. They're definitely not on par with the quality of the first series. I don't really enjoy them as much, and I don't think I'll keep buying them, because they just really do not match to the first series, which in my opinion was just stellar. Here we have the prequel trilogy, and these were the movies I grew up with the original trilogy, but these are the ones that I very much like the prequel trilogy, even though I know a lot of people don't, and I understand that now that I'm older. I see the flaws in these movies, but I still like them because they were what I liked when I was little. So, but no explanation needed for these, so let's move on to the next one. And right here we have my pride and joy, the Clone Wars, seasons 1 through 5. This is by far the best Christmas present I've ever gotten. I believe I got it 2 years ago. But I've just watched all of these episodes over 2 times each, and definitely my favorite show of all time. If you somehow have not seen the Clone Wars, you have to. It is so good. Fight through the first 2 seasons. They're really not very good, but mid-season 3 through 5 are very, very good. And if you haven't seen them, I definitely recommend you do. Here, real quick, we have a Clone Wars novel about one of the stories that happens in the show. You know, not going to talk much about this one. Let's get on to the next. Here we have books 2 and 3 of the Star Wars The Clone Wars Decide Your Destiny. I had a lot of fun with these when I was littler, just reading them, and it was a fun time, because the Clone Wars was still coming out, and I just really enjoyed going through the stories, finding different outcomes. Again, if you're a younger reader out there, these are the books for you. Or even if you're not, you still might enjoy them. You never know. Here we have the Revenge of the Sith novelization. Not much to say about this one. Expands a little on the story. I don't recommend picking it up unless you find it for like $1 and you have a collection, but other than that, no explanation needed. Here we have the first book in Star Wars Last of the Jedi series by Jude Watson. It's a very good series. I found this one at the thrift shop. It's a very good series. I recommend reading it if you're a middle schooler or maybe a bit younger. But it's a very good series, and I definitely recommend reading it. Next, we have Star Wars Rogue One. It's a very good movie. I enjoyed it. I know a lot of people didn't. I actually thought it was really good, and I won't spoil anything, but I really liked the ending, even though I know some people didn't, but, just my opinions. And here, we have the original trilogy in their glorified, unaltered states. I actually found these at a garage sale, and this is just amazing. This is like probably the crown jewel of my collection. because it's kind of rare. I mean, not really, but like, you can't really find these very much anymore, apart from like on the web and stuff. But I really like these, and it's fun to watch them compared to their newer versions, because there are quite a bit of changes that happened between the originals and the super altered 2004, I believe it was, releases. And here we have the super altered versions of the original trilogy. I really want to get the special editions, so then I'll have every version, but I don't really need to explain much about these. You already know what they are, and so yeah, let's get right on. Here we have Star Wars Inferno Squad. I'm actually reading this novel right now. I'm very much enjoying it. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Battlefront 2 and have played the story mode and enjoyed it, because it very much does expand on their story and Iden Versio and her story as well. And there's just a lot in here that I'd very much recommend to read if you haven't read it. Here we have Star Wars Lost Stars. I haven't read this book yet. I'm looking forward to, because right now I'm reading Inferno Squad. I just picked this up at Barnes & Noble. It was on sale for $5, so I'm like, hey, why not? So maybe I'll do a review if you want me to after I read it. And finally, we have these random Lego things, which I got when I was much younger. This actually is pretty funny. The episodes they're funny, and you know, they're kind of worth a watch, just if you're like all things Star Wars type of person. Yoda Chronicles, actually, I kind of like the story to it, not gonna lie. This, not very good book. This is actually a pretty good book. I know they updated it, but if you're into Star Wars Lego, then pick up the updated version, but this version is actually pretty good too. And that about rounds up the video. If you want me to do reviews on any of these things, I'm certainly up for it. I really hope I can expand my YouTube channel a bit. I really want to dedicate a lot of my time to it, but unfortunately I have high school and that kind of stuff. So yeah, see you in the next video. Peace out.